The sky above Earth tore open as the massive Tarkva warships arrived. They did not come in silence. They wanted to be seen, to be feared. Their fleet, dark and monstrous, spread across the sky like a second moon, blocking out the sun over entire cities. In every country, every corner of the world, people looked up. Some screamed, some prayed, some simply stood in shock. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. A deep metallic voice boomed from the warships, broadcasting across every screen, radio, and speaker on the planet. We are the Tarkva, rulers of 1,000 worlds. You, humans, are weak. You are small. You have only one home. And now, it belongs to us. Governments scrambled. Military forces rushed into position. But what could they do? The Tarkva were an interstellar empire, a force beyond imagination. Their weapons could destroy entire cities with a single blast. Their soldiers were taller, stronger, and faster than any human. The world's leaders gathered in secret bunkers, debating their response. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. But one thing was clear. Humanity had never faced a threat like this before. The Tarkva laughed at their hesitation. You are primitives. You fight among yourselves over land, over power. We have ruled the stars for centuries. Your kind is nothing but an insect waiting to be crushed. But Earth did not answer. Not yet. The Tarkva took this as fear. They saw no real military presence in space, no great planetary defenses. Humanity was defenseless. Or so they thought. The invasion began at dawn. From their massive warships, Tarkva soldiers descended in heavy dropships, landing in major cities. Their armor gleamed under the rising sun, their weapons humming with alien energy. They expected surrender. They expected humans to fall to their knees, to beg for mercy. Instead, they were met with silence. The cities seemed too quiet. The streets were empty. No civilians screaming. No soldiers waiting for battle. Just silence. The Tarkva hesitated. This was not how conquests usually went. Then their scanners started glitching. Strange energy readings appeared. Unexplained disruptions in their communications. The dropships began experiencing mechanical failures. And then the first wave vanished. Not killed. Not attacked. Just gone. Entire squads of elite soldiers, the best warriors of the Empire, simply disappeared without a sound. The Tarkva commanders grew restless. Something was wrong. They sent more troops, but the same thing happened. They entered the cities and never came back. Fear crept into the Tarkva ranks. This was supposed to be easy. This was supposed to be a simple conquest. Instead, Earth was waiting, watching. And for the first time in centuries, the Tarkva, rulers of 1,000 worlds, felt something they had never felt before. Doubt. Tarkva Commander Vorth stood on the bridge of his warship, his claws tapping against the metal armrest. His soldiers had landed. They had marched through the cities. And then they vanished. No gunfire, no explosions, no distress signals, just silence. This was wrong. Conquests were never this quiet. Commander, an officer spoke, his voice uneasy. We have lost contact with 3 battalions. No sign of enemy fire. No bodies found. Vorth's mandibles twitched in frustration. Impossible. Even the weakest civilizations left some resistance, some kind of battle. But this was unnatural. Send another wave, he ordered. More Tarkva warriors descended to Earth, this time with full force. Tanks rolled onto the streets. War drones scanned every alley. Battle walkers stomped through the ruins. Still, there was nothing. Then the first scream came. A single soldier's voice crackled through the comms. Panicked, terrified. Something is here. I can't see. AAAG. The signal cut. Vorth's claws dug into his chair. Who attacked them? Where is the enemy? Another scream. Then another. One by one, entire squads were being wiped out. The warships in orbit received no enemy readings, no thermal signatures, no life forms except their own. And yet, they were dying. On the ground, Tarkva warriors opened fire blindly, shooting at shadows. Something moved between them, too fast to see, too quiet to hear. Then, the storm came. Without warning, the skies above Earth shifted. Dark clouds formed unnaturally fast. Winds howled like a living thing. Lightning struck, not at random, but precisely on Tarkva positions. Dropships were hit midair, spiraling into the ground in fiery explosions. Tanks and walkers shut down as their systems failed. Soldiers screamed as the earth beneath them cracked open, swallowing them whole. Vorth's eyes widened. This was not war. This was a nightmare. "Commander," another officer stammered. "The planet itself, it's fighting back." Vorth stood, his breathing heavy. This was no ordinary world. And humans were no ordinary species. They had survived on a living battlefield, a planet that fought for them. And now it had declared war. Panic spread through the Tarkva fleet. Their forces were trained to fight against armies, against enemies they could see, enemies that followed the rules of war. But Earth followed no rules. Commander Vorth watched the battlefield from his warship screens, but all he saw was confusion. His soldiers fired their weapons at shadows, at whispers, at nothing. Then they screamed. Squad after squad vanished. His best hunters, his elite warriors, gone. No bodies, no blood, just silence. This was not war. This was a massacre. Vorth turned to his officers. "Deploy the Seekers. I want visual confirmation of what's happening down there." Seekers were Tarkva's most advanced war drones, equipped with infrared, motion tracking, and psychic sensors. Nothing could escape them. Or so they thought. The drones hovered over the empty cities, scanning for movement. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then one of the drones detected something. A shape. No, many shapes. Moving in the darkness. Not human. Not animal. Something else. The drone locked on, zooming in. The feed glitched. Then the image returned, just for a second. And what it showed made Vorth's blood run cold. A smiling human, standing completely still in the middle of the street. Then the screen went black. Every drone went offline at the same time. The warship's alarms blared. "Commander," an officer shouted. "Something is attacking the fleet." Vorth spun to the main display. His own ships, the mightiest in the galaxy, were shutting down. Engines failing. Systems crashing. "Impossible," Vorth growled. "Nothing on this world should have this power." But Earth was not just a world. It was something else, and humanity was no longer fighting alone. The Tarkva fleet hung in the sky like dying embers, drifting, powerless. Their warships, once unstoppable, now struggled to function. On the surface, chaos reigned. Commander Vorth stood frozen on the bridge, his claws gripping the console. His army was disappearing. His ships were shutting down. And now, the planet itself was changing. Tarkva soldiers, trapped on the ground, sent frantic distress calls. "The ground is moving. We are sinking. The earth is swallowing us. The forest, the trees are hunting us. Signal lost." Vorth's mandibles clicked in frustration. He turned to his officers. "Explain, now." One of them, pale with fear, spoke. "Sir, Earth is fighting back." Vorth snarled. "A planet cannot fight. It was just rock and water, nothing more." But then the storms came. Dark clouds twisted unnaturally in the sky, forming monstrous shapes, watching. The wind screamed, tearing Tarkva ships apart midair. Lightning struck with terrifying precision, vaporizing entire battalions. Rivers flooded, sweeping away armored convoys. Forests moved, cutting off escape routes. And then came the whispers. Tarkva soldiers reported hearing voices, speaking in a language they could not understand. They felt eyes watching them from the shadows. Shapes moved where there should be none. Fear spread like a disease. These were the warriors of an empire that had conquered 1,000 worlds. And yet, they were terrified. Vorth watched his fleet fall apart before his eyes. His greatest warships, his best soldiers, all useless against this nightmare. A message from one of his ground commanders came through. His voice was shaking. "Commander, Earth is alive, and it does not want us here." The signal cut out. Vorth clenched his claws. This was impossible. And yet, it was happening. Earth was not just a battlefield. It was a predator, and they were its prey. Commander Vorth had seen many wars. He had crushed civilizations, watched planets burn, and forced entire species to kneel before the Tarkva Empire. But this was no war. This was a slaughter. And for the first time in his long, merciless career, he wanted to run. The fleet was in chaos. The soldiers, once fearless, were begging for evacuation. The ground teams were being hunted, not by soldiers, not by human armies, but by something else. The planet itself. Tarkva warships tried to leave. Their engines roared to life, breaking free of Earth's atmosphere. Vorth watched from the bridge, claws clenched, as several ships pushed upward, desperate to return to the void. Then the sky itself turned against them. A wave of energy, invisible to the eye, but devastating in its power, rippled through the air. Every ship that tried to escape froze mid-flight. Systems failed instantly. Power vanished. The mighty warships, the pride of the Tarkva Empire, became lifeless husks. Then, one by one, they fell. Vorth watched in horror as the great Tarkva fleet rained down upon Earth, crashing into the very cities they had tried to conquer. His own ship shook violently. The controls refused to respond. He saw the fear in his officers' eyes. Something was holding them there. Something refused to let them go. And deep in his mind, Vorth finally understood. This was not a battlefield. It was a trap. Earth had let them in. But now, it was never going to let them leave. The mighty Tarkva fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, lay in ruins. Warships burned across the skies, their wreckage scattered over the planet they had tried to conquer. Commander Vorth stood on the bridge of his crippled flagship, his mind racing. How had a primitive world done this? His warriors were trapped, their ships useless, and the planet, this cursed planet, was still watching. The whispers in the air grew louder. The ground trembled beneath the weight of something ancient. Then, they appeared. At first, Vorth thought they were humans, silhouettes moving through the wreckage, walking fearlessly through the battlefield. But something was wrong. Their eyes glowed. Their bodies shifted, flickering in and out of focus. They were not human. They were something else, something older, something that had been waiting. And then they spoke. Not in words, not in any language the Tarkva could understand, but in thoughts, in emotions, in pure, overwhelming power. Vorth and his crew collapsed to their knees, clutching their heads as an unseen force invaded their minds. Images flooded his brain. Earth, once a lifeless rock, awakened. Earth, watching as civilizations rose and fell upon its surface. Earth, learning, growing, waiting for the day when someone would come to take it. And now, Earth was fighting back. The force inside his mind whispered something that sent a cold, primal fear through his entire being. You do not own this world. It owns you. Vorth tried to resist, tried to command his fleet to do something, anything. But it was too late. Earth had already decided their fate. The Tarkva were never leaving. The mighty Tarkva Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds. Their fleets had burned civilizations to ash. Their warriors had crushed entire species into submission. But Earth was different. And now, Earth had won. Commander Vorth lay on the cold metal floor of his warship's bridge, his mind drowning in the overwhelming force that had invaded it. It wasn't human. It wasn't something he could fight. It was the planet itself. It had let them come, let them mock humanity, let them believe they were superior. And then, it had destroyed them. Vorth tried to stand, his body weak, his vision blurred. His officers were silent, their eyes empty, their minds shattered by the presence that had spoken to them. The warships floated lifelessly in the sky, their power drained. The warriors on the ground, scattered, hunted, gone. The whispers in the air grew louder. Then came the final blow. The sky split open, not with HFY warships, not with human weapons, but with pure, raw energy. A force beyond science, beyond logic, a force that ripped through the fleet like paper. Ships crumbled, armor melted. The last remaining HFY screamed as the planet itself tore them apart. Vorth looked out of the bridge's shattered viewport, watching his fleet fall, watching his empire's greatest warriors vanish into the abyss. And in his final moments, as the energy consumed his ship, as his body turned to dust, he finally understood. Earth was not just a world. It was something greater, something that had been waiting. And the HFY, they had been fools. The last thing Vorth heard before everything turned to darkness was the voice, deep and ancient, whispering one final truth. You thought we were weak, because we had only one home, but you never asked why. Then silence, and Earth stood alone once more.